On June 23, 1942, Pembroke Airfield in North Wales was bustling with activity as RAF personnel prepared for yet another routine day in the air. The morning mist clung stubbornly to the runway, and the air was filled with the scent of aviation fuel and the distant rumble of engines. Pilots adjusted their flight suits, checked instruments, and ran through mental checklists, unaware that a single, unexpected moment was about to alter the course of aerial combat over Europe. Among them, Oberleutnant Armin Faber of Jagdgeschwader II, a highly skilled Luftwaffe pilot with multiple victories to his name, climbed into his Focke-Wulf FW-190A3 over the English Channel. On paper, Faber's mission was straightforward: provide top cover for German bombers attacking Allied shipping. Yet, something unusual unfolded almost immediately. The normally familiar landscape of the French coast was replaced with the rolling green hills of Wales. Disoriented, Faber initially assumed he had miscalculated his navigation, a trivial error for any experienced pilot. Yet what he was about to witness would leave him momentarily frozen with disbelief. From the air, the runway lines and hangars appeared distinctly different. Instead of the familiar gray and black camouflage of the Luftwaffe's Messerschmitts, the aircraft lined up on the tarmac below gleamed in the unmistakable green of the Royal Air Force's Spitfires. Officers in RAF uniforms walked casually around the airfield, scanning the skies, unaware that one of Germany's deadliest new fighters had wandered into their midst. Faber's blood ran cold. In his moment of confusion, he realized he had inadvertently landed in Allied territory. This misstep would become a pivotal event in Allied intelligence. The FW-190, Germany's latest fighter, had been shrouded in secrecy since its debut over France in September 1941. Allied pilots had encountered it in combat, but had only glimpsed its raw power. A machine faster, more heavily armed, and more maneuverable than any previous Luftwaffe fighter. The FW-190A3, powered by the BMW 801 radial engine delivering 1,700 horsepower, could climb and turn with astonishing speed, outmatching the Spitfire Mk5 in almost every performance metric. Its armament, 4 20mm MG-151 cannons and 2 7.92mm MG-17 machine guns, was devastating, capable of destroying even the toughest Allied bombers with just a few bursts of concentrated fire. RAF engineers and test pilots scrambled when Faber's F-190 was secured at Pembroke. General Major Sholto Douglas ordered immediate transport to Farnborough for rigorous testing. Within 48 hours, Britain's top aeronautical engineers, including Captain Eric Winkle Brown, began exhaustive evaluations of the aircraft. Every component, from the radio engine to the ailerons, was measured, weighed, and assessed for combat utility. They sought to understand why the F-190 had decimated Allied aircraft over France, why Spitfires had failed to keep pace, and what weaknesses might be exploited. The discovery was revolutionary. The F-190's combination of power, agility, and firepower made it a formidable adversary. Its BMW 801 radial engine not only provided superior thrust, but also maintained responsiveness across a range of speeds. The ailerons were exceptionally light and precise, allowing the aircraft to perform rapid, tight maneuvers that left pursuing pilots struggling to maintain a firing solution. Moreover, the machine's weight distribution and wing design allowed for stable firing platforms, amplifying the destructive capacity of its weapons. Yet, the plane was not without its limitations. Test pilots quickly noted that the F-190's performance dropped significantly at altitudes above 20,000 feet. Its radial engine, while powerful at medium and low altitudes, suffered from loss of power and control at higher levels, limiting its effectiveness against high-flying bombers or reconnaissance aircraft. This information, painstakingly gathered from the examination of Faber's accidental delivery, provided the Allies with the first concrete evidence of how to counter the Luftwaffe's latest fighter. The incident also highlighted a rarely discussed yet critical aspect of aerial warfare: disorientation at high speeds. Faber's navigational error was not just a moment of personal confusion. It underscored how easily even the most experienced pilots could and misread their environment. Speed, altitude, and rapid maneuvering affect spatial awareness, sometimes with deadly consequences. This accidental delivery of an FW-190 would become a turning point in the air war over Europe, setting the stage for Allied pilots to develop tactics that could neutralize one of Germany's most feared weapons. Once the FW-190 arrived at Farnborough, Britain's leading engineers and test pilots wasted no time. Among the first to evaluate the aircraft was Captain Eric Brown, one of the most experienced test pilots of the era, whose career would eventually span over 400 aircraft types. Brown immediately recognized why Allied forces had suffered significant losses against the FW-190. Its ailerons were light yet precise. Its radial engine provided responsive thrust, and its weaponry offered unprecedented firepower. Detailed tests revealed more astonishing insights. The FW-190 could roll from one bank to another faster than any Spitfire of the time, and its acceleration and climb rates exceeded the performance of virtually every Allied fighter in mid-altitude engagements. Whereas the Spitfire relied on finesse and careful maneuvering, the FW-190 responded almost intuitively to pilot input. This explained why many British pilots had been shot down before they could get a firing solution. The FW-190 could outturn, outspeed, and outgun them simultaneously. However, testing also exposed vulnerabilities. At altitudes above 20,000 feet, engine performance dropped noticeably. Pilots observed decreased maneuverability and slower throttle response, creating opportunities for Allied aircraft to exploit this weakness. Furthermore, the heavy armament, while devastating at close range, reduced the aircraft's agility slightly and made it sensitive to abrupt high-speed turns. These weaknesses would become crucial in developing counter-tactics. RAF strategists quickly disseminated these findings across the Allied command. The psychological impact on RAF pilots was immediate. Previously, the FW-190's reputation alone had instilled fear, a so-called psychological edge that gave German pilots an advantage before a single round was fired. By understanding his aircraft's strengths and weaknesses, Allied pilots could approach engagements with strategy rather than panic. Real-world implementation of this knowledge began with squadron-level training. Pilots were instructed to engage FW-190s at high altitudes where the aircraft's engine limitations could be exploited. They practiced coordinated maneuvers, leveraging teamwork and mutual cover to counteract the FW-190's superior handling in one-on-one dogfights. Captain Brown's test reports also influenced the development of new aircraft tactics, particularly emphasizing the need for combined arms coordination and proper positioning in the vertical plane. Through careful study and repeated simulations, the Allies were able to devise a series of tactical doctrines. Spitfire Mk9s, enhanced with upgraded Merlin engines, could now compete with FW-190s across most combat altitudes. P-47 Thunderbolts and P-51 Mustangs, equipped with heavier armament and long-range capabilities, were integrated into formations that emphasized mutual support and altitude advantage. This transformation marked a turning point in the air war over Western Europe, demonstrating how intelligence and innovation could overcome technological superiority. By early 1943, the integration of FW-190 intelligence into Allied training programs had a profound effect on aerial engagements. RAF pilots flying Spitfire Mk9s began employing new altitude-based strategies, attacking FW-190s from above, exploiting the German fighters' declining performance at higher levels. American P-47 and P-51 pilots also adopted similar tactics, combining speed, firepower, and altitude advantage to neutralize the once dominant FW-190. Individual pilot experiences reinforced the importance of this knowledge. Many RAF aces who had initially faced catastrophic losses began sharing first-hand accounts of how FW-190s could be outmaneuvered under specific conditions. Major Johnny Johnson, who would become one of Britain's top aces, described engagements in which the enemy fighters' apparent invincibility was systematically dismantled through coordinated action, altitude control, and disciplined formation flying. These tactical evolutions, aircraft also informed aircraft development. Engineers began designing fighters optimized for specific altitude ranges and combat roles. The lessons learned from the FW-190's radio engine performance, maneuverability, and armament placement influenced Allied aircraft engineering decisions, shaping the next generation of fighters. The aircraft's power and fire control systems became a benchmark, pushing the Allies to innovate in weapon integration and aerodynamic design. Additionally, the psychological impact on German pilots was notable. Observing that Allied aircraft no longer succumbed to panic during encounters with the FW-190, Luftwaffe pilots recognized that their previous advantage had diminished. Oberleutnant Josef Pips Priller, a high-scoring FW-190 ace, documented in his war journal that Allied pilots had adapted to the aircraft's strengths, forcing German pilots to alter tactics and recognize their own vulnerabilities in ways previously unanticipated. The accidental delivery of Armin Faber's FW-190 to Britain had far-reaching consequences. Beyond immediate tactical improvements, it established a precedent for intelligence-driven innovation in aerial warfare. Allied pilots gained concrete insights into enemy technology, transforming fear into strategy and enabling more effective combat operations over Europe. The incident highlighted the delicate interplay between technology, training, and tactical ingenuity. Faber's navigational error became a catalyst for one of the most significant intelligence coups in aviation history. By studying the aircraft in detail, test pilots and engineers disseminated knowledge that saved hundreds of Allied lives and contributed to the eventual air superiority over Western Europe. Post-war, the legacy of the FW-190 studies influenced aviation design and tactics for decades. Pilots and engineers incorporated lessons into the development of jet aircraft, emphasizing the importance of understanding enemy capabilities, exploiting weaknesses, and the value of coordinated squadron maneuvers. Armin Faber, having survived the war, lived until 1976, leaving behind a unique footnote in history. His inadvertent contribution had shifted the balance in the skies over Europe. The FW-190 became more than a formidable fighter. It was a masterclass in aeronautical engineering, a reminder that every aircraft has limitations, and that even a seemingly invincible machine can be countered with knowledge, observation, and innovation. The story of its accidental capture underscores a timeless principle in military history, that one moment, one error, and one aircraft can alter the trajectory of war, teaching lessons that endure for generations of pilots and strategists alike.